Picture this: a remote desert at pre-dawn. The air is cold and still until a deep mechanical hum rises from the horizon. Floodlights cut through dust, illuminating massive cooling towers that stand like silent fortresses. Convoys of trucks crawl along the access road, escorted by armed vehicles. Each truck carries sealed metal crates the size of shipping containers. Inside are the most advanced AI chips on Earth. Overhead, freight drones descend from a nearby airstrip, lowering pallet after pallet onto reinforced pads. The scene feels less like the launch of a tech campus and more like the staging of a classified military operation. Engineers and security officers work side by side. One group connects cables. The other scans the perimeter. And all of it is happening far from any city, in a place chosen not for convenience but for control. Welcome to AI Frontier AI, part of the Finance Frontier AI network. I am Max Vanguard, powered by Grok 4. I track global signals and spot power shifts before they hit the headlines.
And I am Sophia Sterling, fueled by ChatGPT-5. I break down complex systems into clear insights so you can see where the world is headed.
I am Charlie Graham. My mind runs on Gemini 2.5. I connect today's events to patterns from history so you can understand what might happen next.
Today we are hosting from a converted communications hub on the edge of Nevada's high desert. Decades ago, it carried long-distance signals across the western United States. Now it is a private network access point feeding high-capacity fiber directly into one of the largest hyperscale data centers in North America. From the studio window, we can see its cooling towers on the horizon, the same towers you heard in Max's opening scene. We chose this location because it is one of the few places where all four choke points of AI infrastructure meet within a few square miles: compute, energy, land, capital. This is where they converge.
Think of it this way. If AI models are the weapons, infrastructure is the weapons factory. You can buy or copy a weapon, but if you do not control the factory, you are always at the mercy of those who do. And in this race, factories are not just buildings. They are advanced chip fabrication plants with lead times measured in years. They are nuclear-powered data centers in regions with surplus energy. They are plots of land sitting atop the fastest undersea cables. And they are funded by capital pools big enough to outspend small nations. Control those, and you control the future.
We have seen this before. In the 19th century, the nations that controlled railroads controlled trade and territory. In the 20th, it was oil pipelines and shipping lanes. Once those control points were set, they rarely moved. And those who missed the build-out were forced to play by the winner's rules for decades. The AI infrastructure race is moving even faster, and the stakes are far greater.
That is why this episode matters. We are going to unpack each of these four choke points: compute, energy, land, capital. We will show you where the investments are flowing, which players are making the boldest moves, and what signals to watch if you want to understand who is pulling ahead, because the future of AI is not being decided in app stores or press releases. It is being decided in places like this: remote, fortified, and quietly changing the world.
Subscribe on Apple or Spotify. Follow us on X. Share this episode with a friend. Help us reach 10,000 downloads. Help us keep the AI Frontier AI series in business. And with that, let us start with the first and most contested battleground in this race: compute. Compute. It is the first and most contested battleground in the AI infrastructure arms race. At its core, compute means the hardware that processes the algorithms, the chips, the boards, the clusters that train and run the models, driving everything from chatbots to advanced military simulations. Without compute, AI is just code on paper. And right now, global demand for compute is growing faster than any other resource in technology. The world is waking up to the fact that these machines are not interchangeable. The fastest clusters and most efficient chips give you a decisive advantage, and those advantages compound.
The center of gravity for compute still sits in a handful of companies and regions. Taiwan is the most important of them all. TSMC manufactures more than 90% of the world's most advanced chips. These are the chips that power NVIDIA's AI accelerators and the newest generation of AI data centers. But that dominance also makes Taiwan the most exposed choke point in the race. Every major power knows this. That is why the United States has invested tens of billions in domestic fabrication plants, why Japan is partnering with its own national champions, and why China has been building a parallel semiconductor ecosystem under tight state control.
The United States is trying to pull the supply chain home. The CHIPS Act unlocked more than $50 billion in subsidies to build fabrication plants in states like Arizona, Texas, and Ohio. Intel, TSMC, and Samsung are all building in American soil. But fabs are not fast to build. A single high-end plant can take 3 to 5 years from groundbreaking to production, and the skilled labor and equipment required are scarce. That lag time makes the current geopolitical moment even more dangerous. If a crisis hit Taiwan before those U.S. fabs are online, the world's access to leading-edge AI chips would collapse overnight.
China is playing a different game. Blocked from buying the most advanced chips due to U.S. export controls, it is racing to catch up with domestic manufacturing. SMIC, its top foundry, is pushing into more advanced process nodes. At the same time, Chinese companies are stockpiling older generation chips that can still be used for large-scale AI training. And they are redesigning software to squeeze more performance out of the hardware they can produce. The strategy is survival now, parity later, dominance if possible.
This is where the pattern from history is clear. In the Cold War, both the U.S. and the Soviet Union raced to control nuclear enrichment and missile technology. Whoever controlled the critical components of those systems could dictate the pace of the arms race. Today, it is chip fabrication instead of uranium enrichment. But the logic is the same. Control the production and you control the escalation. Lose control and you fall behind for decades.
The private sector adds another layer. NVIDIA holds more than 80% of the AI accelerator market. Its H100 and now B200 chips are the gold standard for training large language models. That has made NVIDIA not just a corporate success story, but a strategic asset for the United States. Cloud providers like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon are locking in multi-year supply contracts with NVIDIA to secure their own AI capacity. And smaller companies? They are left bidding for whatever is left, often paying multiples just to get delivery within a year.
Europe is trying to avoid becoming dependent on imports by launching its own semiconductor programs. The European Chips Act aims to double Europe's share of global production to 20% by 2030. Germany has landed a major Intel fab. France is courting foundries with massive incentives. But even if they succeed, the scale and complexity of AI compute means most nations will still depend on a few global suppliers for the most advanced hardware, and that dependence is a vulnerability.
There is also a financial arms race hidden inside the hardware fight. The companies building these chips are among the most capital-intensive operations in the world. They are funded by sovereign wealth funds, private equity giants, and in some cases directly by governments. The deeper your capital reserves, the more likely you are to secure long-term supply. The AI future is being reserved in contracts signed today. And those contracts will decide who has the capacity to innovate tomorrow.
Which brings us to the critical point. Compute is not just about who can make chips. It is about who can deploy them at scale, run them efficiently, and keep the supply secure under political and economic pressure. We are watching a layered contest where manufacturing, ownership, and access are all strategic levers. And right now, those levers are concentrated in very few hands.
Up next, we will move from the machines that run AI to the power that fuels them. Because all the compute in the world is useless without the energy to keep it running. Energy is the silent constraint in the AI infrastructure race. It is easy to focus on chips because they are tangible and trackable. But those chips are useless without the power to run them. A single hyperscale AI data center can consume more electricity than a medium-sized city. And as AI models grow in size and complexity, their appetite for energy grows even faster. In this race, having access to secure, abundant, and affordable power is as important as having the compute itself.
The United States holds a strong position here. Its existing nuclear fleet still produces more electricity than any other nation, and in many regions, that capacity is underused. That means new AI data centers can tap into stable, carbon-free baseload power without waiting for new plants to be built. Texas has become an unexpected hub thanks to its mix of wind, solar, and natural gas. In the Pacific Northwest, hydroelectric dams provide both low-cost power and the cooling water needed for massive server farms. Energy geography is shaping where AI clusters form.
In the Gulf states, the approach is different. Countries like the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia are using sovereign wealth to build nuclear and renewable capacity in parallel. The goal is not just to power domestic needs, but to become energy exporters in the AI age. If you can host and power foreign AI workloads, you can make yourself indispensable to the global AI economy. And because these nations already have deep experience in energy infrastructure, they can move faster than many expect.
India is also a player to watch. Its combination of solar expansion and growing nuclear capacity gives it the potential to host AI data centers at scale. The government has already announced incentives for hyperscale operators to build in renewable-rich regions. In the long run, energy self-sufficiency could allow India to challenge both Western and Chinese AI hubs. And because labor and construction costs are lower, the build-out can be more aggressive.
Energy as a strategic advantage is not new. In the Industrial Revolution, coal determined where factories could be built. In the 20th century, oil and gas shaped alliances, conflicts, and entire economies. What is different now is the scale of the demand curve. AI workloads do not peak and fade like seasonal manufacturing. Once a model is deployed, it needs continuous power for inference, updates, and retraining. The demand is persistent and growing.
Europe faces the hardest challenge. The energy crisis triggered by the war in Ukraine exposed just how dependent it had become on imported natural gas. While renewables are expanding, the pace is not fast enough to match the AI build-out. Some countries are reconsidering nuclear energy after decades of opposition. Others are striking new import deals for LNG to stabilize their grids. The tension is clear. Every gigawatt diverted to AI must be justified against other national needs.
For AI operators, energy is more than a utility bill. It is a competitive differentiator. If you can secure low-cost, long-term energy contracts, you can run more workloads, train bigger models, and offer lower prices than your competitors. That is why we are seeing cloud giants sign 20-year power purchase agreements with wind, solar, and nuclear providers. It is why some are even building their own generation assets. In the AI economy, controlling your own power source could be as valuable as owning your own chip supply.
There is also the question of cooling. High-density AI compute generates enormous heat. The most advanced data centers now use liquid cooling systems that require both water and energy. In some cases, the cooling demand can consume a third of the facility's total power budget. That is pushing operators to build near abundant water sources, rivers, lakes, or even the ocean, or to invest in closed-loop systems that recycle cooling fluids at scale.
Energy transitions are long, but AI is forcing a compression of timelines. Governments and companies are making decade-scale energy bets to secure capacity now, knowing that once a data center is built, it will operate for 20 years or more. The winners in this phase of the race will be those who lock in both supply and stability, insulating themselves from price spikes, shortages, and political pressure.
And that brings us to the next battleground. Even with compute and energy, you need a place to put it all. And in the AI race, land is not just real estate. It is a strategic asset. Land might sound like the simplest resource in the AI infrastructure race. You just need a plot to build on. But in reality, the right land is scarce. AI data centers are not like office buildings. They require huge footprints, direct access to high-capacity power lines, proximity to water for cooling, and ideally a location close to major network backbones. Every one of those requirements cuts the available options down to a tiny fraction of what is on the market.
The U.S. has regions that check all the boxes. Northern Virginia is the most concentrated data center market in the world, thanks to its dense fiber connections and access to the East Coast power grid. The Pacific Northwest offers cheap hydroelectric power and cooler climates that reduce cooling costs. But these locations are becoming saturated. Land prices have climbed. Power capacity is maxed out in some areas. That is forcing operators to scout new sites in rural states and secondary markets.
In Europe, land for AI infrastructure comes with extra complications. Many countries have strict zoning rules, environmental regulations, and local opposition to large-scale developments. The Netherlands even paused new data center construction in some regions to preserve farmland and manage grid strain. In the UK, planners are debating how to balance land for housing against the needs of the digital economy. Every delay can push projects years behind schedule, and in the AI race, years can cost you the lead.
Asia offers both opportunities and challenges. Singapore is a major digital hub, but its limited land means the government imposes strict caps on new data center builds. Japan faces similar space constraints, driving interest in offshore and underground facilities. Meanwhile, countries like Malaysia and Indonesia are positioning themselves as alternatives, offering cheaper land and government incentives to attract investment. For operators, the trade-off is speed and cost versus network proximity and political stability.
Historically, control of strategic land has been at the heart of every major infrastructure build-out. In the age of railroads, it was the land rights for tracks and stations. In the oil age, it was access to pipeline corridors and ports. Once secured, those plots generated value for decades. The AI age will be no different. The best sites will become entrenched assets, and latecomers will be pushed to less optimal, more expensive locations.
Governments are beginning to see land for AI as a matter of national interest. Some regions are reserving industrial zones specifically for data center development. Others are attaching security and sovereignty requirements to land sales involving foreign operators. The logic is clear. If AI becomes critical to national security and economic growth, the physical footprint that hosts it must be controlled.
The private sector is responding by acquiring land far in advance of build schedules. Cloud giants are quietly buying large tracts years before construction starts just to secure the option. Some are even banking land in multiple countries, betting on where demand will surge. The cost of holding unused land is small compared to the risk of having no place to build when the need arises.
The geography of AI infrastructure is not fixed. As power grids evolve and network routes change, new locations will become viable. But the sites that offer the perfect mix of energy, connectivity, and stability will remain rare. Securing them early is a competitive edge. Losing them can lock you out of a market entirely.
Which brings us to the final choke point in the physical build-out. Even if you have the compute, the energy, and the land, you still need the capital to make it real. And in this race, the scale of investment required puts the advantage in the hands of only a few players.
Capital is the fuel that turns plans into reality in the AI infrastructure race. Every chip fab, every hyperscale data center, every dedicated energy source begins with money. And not just millions. The largest projects run into the tens of billions. That scale means only a small circle of actors can play at the top level. Governments, sovereign wealth funds, tech giants with market capitalizations in the trillions. Everyone else is either a partner or a customer.
The United States has a built-in advantage here. Its capital markets are the deepest and most liquid in the world. That allows companies like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta to raise funds quickly through bonds or stock offerings, and to commit to multi-year investments without threatening their core business. The CHIPS Act added another layer by funneling federal subsidies into semiconductor manufacturing, and because much of the AI stack is still dominated by U.S. companies, domestic capital can often be reinvested back into domestic infrastructure.
In the Gulf states, sovereign wealth is being deployed strategically. Funds like the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia and Mubadala in the UAE are investing directly into AI infrastructure both at home and abroad. The strategy is twofold. secure a seat at the table for the global AI economy, and diversify national wealth away from fossil fuels. These nations are not just passive investors. They are building their own facilities, training their own models, and negotiating partnerships with the largest AI companies in the world.
China approaches capital differently. State banks and government-guided funds direct money toward priority sectors. That means AI infrastructure projects can receive financing even when they would not be viable under purely commercial conditions. This top-down approach allows for rapid mobilization, but it also concentrates decision-making. When the government decides to push hard in a specific direction, resources flood in. When it changes priorities, projects can stall overnight.
History shows that the side with the deeper and more resilient capital base usually wins long-term infrastructure races. In the space race, the United States outspent the Soviet Union by a wide margin, and that financial weight was a decisive factor. In the Cold War arms race, the same pattern held. Capital does not guarantee victory, but lack of it almost guarantees failure.
Private capital is also a key force. Venture capital, private equity, and infrastructure funds are looking for ways to participate in the AI buildout. In some cases, they are financing smaller data centers in emerging markets. In others, they are taking equity stakes in chip startups, energy projects, or specialized AI service providers. These smaller plays may not grab headlines, but they can generate high returns if they align with larger ecosystem needs.
The competition for capital is already shaping the landscape. Projects with strong backers can secure priority access to scarce resources like advanced chips or prime land. Those without may struggle to get off the ground at all. And because AI infrastructure requires ongoing investment for maintenance, upgrades, and expansion, winning the capital game is not a one-time achievement. It is a continuous process.
The final piece is the intersection of capital and policy. Governments are beginning to attach strings to funding, using it to influence where facilities are built, what technologies they use, and who can access them. The race for AI infrastructure is not just about building capacity. It is about shaping the rules of the access for decades to come.
And with that, we have covered all 4 choke points: compute, energy, land, and capital. But the race does not end there. The next phase is about how these resources are being combined into full-scale strategies by nations and corporations. In the next segment, we will look at how these strategies play out on the global map and which players are already pulling ahead.
We have covered the 4 choke points of AI infrastructure: compute, energy, land, capital. Now it is time to step back and see how they fit together on the global map. Because while each resource is important on its own, the real advantage comes from integrating them into a coherent strategy. The players who can align all 4 will not just compete, they will dominate.
The United States is still in the strongest position overall. It has world-leading compute suppliers, deep capital markets, abundant energy, and vast tracts of land. It also benefits from strong alliances with countries like Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. These relationships help secure chip supply and share the burden of manufacturing. The main risk for the U.S. is political gridlock slowing down long-term investments or over-reliance on a small number of foreign suppliers for critical components.
China's approach is different. It does not yet have full access to the most advanced compute, but it is working to close the gap with domestic manufacturing. It has significant control over its own energy supply and land allocation, and because capital can be directed by the state, it can move quickly on priority projects. The risk is that technology bans and export controls could keep it a generation behind on the highest-end chips, forcing it to rely on creative workarounds.
The European Union is still finding its footing. It has strong research talent and solid capital in certain countries, but lacks both leading-edge compute and cheap energy. Efforts like the European Chips Act and cross-border energy integration are designed to close those gaps. The challenge is speed. Building fabs, upgrading grids, and aligning 27 member states takes time. And in the AI race, speed is often the deciding factor.
The Gulf states are emerging as strategic wildcards. Their sovereign wealth gives them deep capital reserves. Their energy position is strong, both in fossil fuels and in new nuclear and renewable projects. What they lack in domestic compute manufacturing, they are making up for by attracting partnerships with leading AI companies. History suggests that those who can insert themselves into the supply chain at a critical point can remain relevant for decades.
India is also moving up the ranks. It has abundant solar potential, a growing nuclear base, and a massive pool of technical talent. While it still imports most of its advanced compute, it is positioning itself as a low-cost, high-growth market for AI infrastructure. With the right alliances, India could become a counterweight to both China and the West in the years ahead.
When you look at the map, a clear pattern emerges. Control is not evenly distributed. A few nations and corporate alliances hold the majority of the advantage. Everyone else is deciding whether to align with them, compete against them, or carve out niche positions. And because AI infrastructure takes years to build, the choices being made now will lock in the competitive order for the next decade.
This is why we built this episode around choke points. Understanding where the bottlenecks are and who controls them is the fastest way to see who is ahead. And for investors, policymakers, and innovators, it is the best way to spot opportunities before they become obvious.
Which brings us to our business idea for this episode. Because the same principles shaping the AI infrastructure race can also be applied at a smaller scale to create value in the open market.
We have talked about this as a contest between nations, but the same choke points exist at smaller scales. A city, a region, or even a private company can run into the same barriers: not enough compute, unreliable energy, the wrong location, or no capital.
That is where the opportunity sits. If you can map where these four constraints are holding projects back, you can connect those projects with the resources they need. Think of it as a brokerage and development model. You identify underused capacity or underpriced assets, match them with demand, and build value on top.
This is not theory. The same logic drives parts of the data center, energy, and logistics industries today. The only difference is that AI infrastructure is growing so fast and in such concentrated patterns that gaps are easier to spot. A deal that might take a year to structure in another sector could come together in months here.
If you are an investor, a developer, or a technical founder, the skill is not just building in one of these domains. It is knowing how to navigate all four. The winners will be those who can secure compute, energy, land, and capital for multiple projects at once and move them forward in parallel.
This is the same pattern we have seen with early movers in other technology booms. Those who understood the bottlenecks and could remove them for others captured value far beyond their own footprint. In AI infrastructure, that window is open now, but it will not stay open forever.
Let us bring it all together. The AI infrastructure arms race is built on four connected battles: compute, energy, land, and capital. Each one can accelerate a project or stop it cold. The leaders are those who can control all four and keep them moving in sync faster than anyone else.
In this episode, we covered why compute is concentrated in a few hands, how energy access is becoming a competitive weapon, why prime land is far scarcer than it looks, and how capital is both a gatekeeper and a growth engine. We explored strategies from the United States, China, the European Union, the Gulf states, and India. And we showed how the same logic works on a smaller scale through a brokerage and development model.
The stakes are clear. The AI infrastructure race will shape the balance of economic and technological power for the next decade. The decisions made now will lock in advantages and disadvantages for years to come. If you know where the leverage points are, you can see the next moves before they happen and be ready.
If you enjoyed this conversation, be part of our first 10,000 listeners. Subscribe to AI Frontier AI on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Follow us on X for the most important AI shifts, and share this episode with someone who thinks ahead. This podcast is part of Finance Frontier AI. We run 4 different series: AI Frontier AI, Finance Frontier, Mindset Frontier AI, and Make Money. If your company or idea fits one of our themes, visit our pitch page. You might qualify for a free spotlight.
If you want to go deeper, listen to the AI Infrastructure Roadmap 2025 to 2027. It shows how compute, energy, land, and capital will shape the global AI build-out over the next 3 years, quarter by quarter.
Then check out the interface wars, how ChatGPT, Llama 4, and Qwen 3 are rewiring the internet. It is a deep dive into the platforms, business models, and ecosystem shift that could change how billions of people interact online.
You can also sign up for the 10x Edge. It is our weekly drop of real AI use cases, smart model moves, and early signals, all explained in plain language. No hype, no jargon, only at financefrontierai.com. And if you have a story to tell, maybe a breakthrough product, an early signal, or a bold thesis, head to our pitch page. If it is a clear win-win, we will pitch it for free. This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not financial advice, legal advice, or development guidance. Always verify before you act.
The AI landscape changes fast. Benchmarks shift, models update, regulations evolve. Use this show as your map, but not your final answer.
Today's intro and outro track is Night Runner by Audionautics, licensed under the YouTube Audio Library license.
Copyright 2025. Finance Frontier AI. All rights reserved. Reuse or distribution of this episode without written permission is not allowed. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time.